Alright, so I apologize. The last video I didn't realize the fan in the kitchen made that crazy humming sound at the back of the video the whole time. Apologize for that. I'm gonna make sure it's off for the rest of these. And so like I said, sorry about that. We'll move on now with the regular game. So we set up last video, and now we're starting with the play. So the game comes with two of these sheets, one for each player. The one is the game turn, where it explains the turn of the game. It looks like a lot, but it's really pretty fast for the most part. With a little bit of help for a combat sequence here, target numbers based on terrain, and things of that nature. And then the other side is the action die reference chart, which shows what each die does for you. So you spend dies, and you can do actions based on the dice you've rolled. So I have one of them here on the side, and what we like to do, my wife and I like to do, is if we get a die, so we get this character die, which is on the top, actually right here, we just put it on our sheet there to remind us, and if we got a mustard die, we put it here, and we kind of space them out so we know what our dies are and what actions we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that on this one sheet for both armies. There's enough room for that, I think, and if that gets a little confusing for myself for whatever reason, then I'll think of something else to do. But that's what we're going to do. Well, we start. Okay, so the first action in the game, the first turn of the game turn is recovery. The players get their dice back after rolling the previous turn. Of course, we didn't roll yet, so we don't do that. And then each player draws two cards, one from the event deck, one from the story deck. So we'll always draw the three people's first. So the top card would be theirs. So they get an event card. They get marching company. So these event cards are special. They're two-sided. There are two parts to them, kind of like the War of the Ring game. Well, just like the War of the Ring game's cards. The top one is for basically map and army things, and the bottom is for battle. So when you have these cards in here, you have to decide: am I going to spend it to do the top part, or am I going to spend it to do the battle part when I'm in a fight? And if you spend it for either one, you discard the card, so you only get one use. So you have to kind of prioritize what you want to do. So we get marching companies, and the story card they get is Elven Charge, and we'll explain how these work when we use them. I'm not going to read every card every time I draw it. The Shadows also get marching companies, and their story card is Returning to the Assault. Okay, so those are the cards for the Shadow. We'll put theirs here. The Free People's we'll keep over here for them. Okay, and then we get our dice, which we obviously already have. So the next thing we do is we activate our generals. We can choose up to 3 generals to activate, which means we are able to use their abilities. So if we look down here at our generals, as remember we have Gandalf, Thranduil, Bard, and Dane in play at the time. They each have a circle here. We have 3 of these activation tokens. So we could place these, like one on Gandalf, and one on Dane, and one on Bard, say. And then at the start of, before we use a die every turn, we could choose one to take the act token off and do their ability. Now the thing is, the amount of generals we activate every turn is how many tiles the shadow people can draw for the fate track. Remember, the fate track, they want low tiles. So if we activate 3 armies, 3 generals, they get to draw 3 tiles. The first tile they draw, if it's a high number, they don't want it, because we have 3 guys, they could put it aside and draw a new tile. And if they don't want that, they could put it aside and draw another tile for 3. It depends on how many we activate. If we activate 1, they can only draw 1. If we activate 2, they can draw 1. If they don't like it, draw a second. They have to keep the next one they draw. So if they draw 1, don't like it, put it aside, draw another one. And they have to use that one because we did 2 armies and it's higher, then they're screwed. But by activating more generals, we basically give the shadow more chances to get lower numbers. So we have to decide, do we want to activate a lot of them, a few of them? I think for just doing the game and showing how things work, we'll just do 3 generals in the first turn here. So let's do Gandalf, Bard, and Dane, and then we'll show how they work. So we activate 3 generals. So when we activate, the number we activate is how many leadership tokens we get. These are leadership tokens for the free peoples. These help give armies rerolls and some extra abilities when we use them. So since we activated 3, we get 3. And we get to put one of these on an army. So we'll put one on, let's see, we'll put one on this army here, guarding the ford. Let's put another one in camp, and let's put another one in the Ruins of Dale. It doesn't really matter this early, but let's put one in the Ruins of Dale, I guess. Just put them out, one here. So that's 3. So now, because we selected 3 generals, did our 3 leader tokens, the shadow gets to draw fate tiles. So we get the bag of fate tiles and a draw. So because we did, remember, we did 3 general activations. If they don't like the first one, they could put it away and draw a second one. If they don't like that one, they put them and draw a third one because of the 3 activations. But they always have to keep the last one that they draw, basically. So let's see what we get. So the first tile is a 3, which they do not want. Remember, the higher the tile, the worse for the shadow. So the shadow is actually drawing the tiles here. So he doesn't want that. So he could draw up to 2 more because of the 3 activations. Then he draws a 1 and a fate card. Okay. So the 1 is good for them. The fate card, they're bound to come out eventually. I'll show you what that means. That basically means that one of the cards on the top of that fate deck on the bottom there is going to be drawn because of this. So he'll keep this one. A 1 is good for the shadow. So the 3 goes actually back in the bag because it wasn't used. And because it's a 1, we move the fate track up from 0 to 1. So this heads up to 1 on the fate track. So remember, if that got to Bilbo, if he did 3 and he had to take the first one, it will move it up to 3 already. And Bilbo would be activated. He might be able to come into play soon, that next turn. But because it's on 1, we haven't got to Bilbo yet, that doesn't happen. So this gets discarded, actually. Once it's drawn, it gets discarded. But because it had the fate symbol on it, the free people get to draw a fate card from that deck right there and see what we get. So we get Shining Armor, play on Thorin. When this card is in play, you may place here any damage tokens inflicted on the army containing Thorin. Damage on the card cannot be removed with a rally. If at any end of round of combat there are more than 5, discard this card. Alright, so basically, this is a really good card for Thorin. Any army with him gets to basically negate up to 5 damage before they have to start taking damage on their own. Now, Thorin is not in play right now. He is on the fate track here at number 6. But this card still goes on his character for when he comes into play. So Thorin is here, so we'll put the card on top so we remember that we have it. Okay, so that will help the free peoples when Thorin gets into play, that card is in play. Okay, so next we do the Shadow leadership. So the Shadow has their own version of leadership with the tokens. Their tokens basically, they get as much leadership as dice they have. So they have 6 dice in the beginning of the game. And the way they get their 7th die is if they control 2 of the areas from the same territory. Basically, they get their 7th die. So remember, this is all the valley. If they get the Ruins of Dale and the Fallen Bridge, all 2 in the valley, they'll get the 7th die. If they get the front gate, the camp, or Eastern Spur, 2 of those 3, they'll get it. If they get Ravenhill or the slopes, they'll get it. So 2 in one territory, they'll get their 7th die. For now, they start with 6. So they have 2 options here. They can place all 6 out, or they could place some great bats out. These are the great bats. Now, the great bats have a special rule about territory that they're in. So let's look at their card, because they start in play. You see here the great bats begin in play at the start of the game. Okay, so they have Bat Cloud. Use a muster die result and remove one great bat from a territory to choose a friendly army in the same territory and move that army. So it's another way to move. Usually a muster die you can't move. This gives them another ability to move armies. And Vampire-like happens when a fight is happening. They add the Vampire-like maneuver card. We'll get to that when we start fighting. To your hand in combat if one of the more great bats are present in the territory where the combat takes place. And then at the end of the round, all the bats return to their piles. So I think what we're going to do is we'll place a few army tokens out. Let's do 4 to start with. Why not? Put one for each army and see how we want to work this. So put 1 on each army out here. There's going to be 1 place per army in this phase. And that leaves 2. We could put them on the goblin armies, but they're not going to be coming through for a little while. So that means we could put 2 great bats out. So the great bats are based on territory, not regions. So if I place a great bat here, in the Broken Lands, in the yellow, it doesn't matter if he's here, it doesn't matter. He's just in yellow, so he can affect any army in yellow. So basically it's like he's flying like over this whole Broken Lands region. If we place him in the valley, then he's in the valley, not just one region. So we'll place we'll place 1 here in the valley, and we'll place 1 in the Broken Lands. Okay, so that is the part 4 of a game turn. So far we've recovered, we got our dice back and drew 2 cards. We activated Free People Generals and put their leadership out. We did the Fate track by drawing a Fate token. Then we did the Shadow Leadership. So now we actually get to where we roll dice and do stuff for real. So let's roll up the Free People's dice first. So remember, they get 5 dice in the beginning of the game. These awesome, gorgeous dice. The same dice that are used in War of the Ring. Just awesome. Alright. So we roll for the Free Peoples. I'll explain these dice when we act them out, but basically they've got 2 character dice. These swords are character dice. They got 1 event die, which is here. Palantir, I guess. They got a Will of the West die here, which is basically a wild die. It can be turned into any other die, and also is used to bring out characters when they can't come out. And they got an Army Muster die, which could basically be used for either the muster action or the army action. Alright, and then the Shadow roll, there's 6. Alright, so the Shadow, they get 2 lidless eyes. These are used for goblins. In War of the Ring, that was used to hunt for the ring, but of course that doesn't happen in this game, so it's used for a different thing. We get 1 character die, a sword, just a different looking sword. Then the Free Peoples, a muster die here, 2 muster dies, and a event die, Palantir, with the Eye of Sauron on it. Alright, so those are our dice. So as I said before, this is how I like to place my dice. So I remember what I have. So basically I have 2 character dice and 1 for the Shadow, 2 Lidless Eye. Because you can spend these in any order, but you can look here and be like, okay, I got 1 of these. I got 2 of these, what do I want to do? So that's kind of how I prefer to do it personally. Makes it pretty easy to see what you got going on there. Okay. So the the Free People always go first. They choose an action die, resolve it, do something. If at any time the player's whose turn it is has less action dice than the Shadow or the other player, they can pass and see what the other player's going to do. So technically, the Free People have 5, the Shadow has 6. If the Free People wanted to, they can pass, and then the Shadow will take their turn and then they can see what they're doing. but we're not going to pass here. So before you spend a die, you can do one of your general activations. That's the time when you do it. It states it on the card. Before choosing your action die, they all say the same thing. So for, let's see. Let's do Bard to start with here. Show what his card says here. So Bard, General. Before choosing your action die, discard the activation token from this card to place one Dwarves and Men recruitment token in camp, or to flip one Dwarves and Men recruitment token anywhere on the board. So we're going to do that, this him first. So we remove this token to show that we've used it this turn now. And we're going to flip a token anywhere on the board. I think we're going to flip the one where Bard is, out here in the Eastern Spur, because Bard is in a really tough spot here. I always feel bad for Bard. I mean, the enemy is coming right around the corner. He's pretty much the first guy they're going to go for, besides trying to get over the water here to get to maybe the Ruins of Dale. And he only starts with one. Poor Lake Man there. So we're going to flip his token. So we see what we get, and we get a Lake Man. You see the token here? We flip it over. Alright. Okay, so sorry about that. So we get a Lake Man token. Now these get discarded every time they're used. We just put them back here face up so we know they've been used, and we place a Lake Man unit over here with Bard in the Eastern Spur. So there is a unit limit. The most you can have on any space is 5 units, except for the Shadow and their muster points up here. They could have more than 5. But if they want to move armies out of those muster areas, where they start up there, to the next area, they can only take 5 units with them. So Bard now has 2 guys up there with him in the Eastern Spur. Okay, so that we used Bard's activation. And now we gotta use a die. What do we want to do? We have cards. None of these we're not using any cards yet. We have character dies. We have army muster. I think we're going to use a muster die to recruit. So what we could do with a muster die, so this is an army muster, we could choose. The muster is the helmet on the left, the army is the flag. We're going to use this die. So for muster actions, we can recruit, it says here, we can recruit, choose up to 2 different regions on the game board, and flip 1 recruitment token in each of them. We can rally, which is a way to actually heal your units, and we can play a card with the type of muster. So each event card and story card in the game have symbols on the top right. So this is an army card. It's got a flag, and that is an army card. The 2 ways you can play cards is you could either play an event die to play any card in your hand, or you play a die matching that symbol. So since we had a muster army, you technically would have spent that die to play one of these cards, because these are army cards. But we don't want to play the cards yet, but that is basically somehow those cards work for playing. So we're going to muster. We're going to choose 2 different regions, flip over a token in each, and recruit. So we're going to start with the Ruins of Dale here, I think. And we get a Dwarven regular. So we grab a Dwarven regular in the Ruins of Dale. And then I think we're going to go with camp here with Dane, Ironfoot, and we get a Dwarven elite. Or, it's not actually called an elite in this game. Sorry, what are they called in this game? I used to bore the ring more. They are called Dwarven Veterans. So he's got a Dwarven Veteran in camp and a Dwarven Regular and Dane in camp. So that's pretty good. So that's the first die of the game spent. So basically that's how it works. You take a die that you've rolled, you try to do something that it says here, and that's it. Okay, so the Shadow, they have 2 muster dice, 2 lidless eyes for their goblins, a character, and an event. Let's see what they have for their hand of cards. Ooh, I think we're gonna use muster die to play Returning to the Assault. Because this has a muster symbol on the top, we can use the muster die, which matches that symbol, to play the card. So if you read this card, it says, flip up to 5 shadow recruitment tokens in Broken Lands. Then you may move 1 shadow army in a Broken Lands region. That is pretty awesome. 5 tokens in Broken Lands. Alright, so we're going to flip up the 2 by the wargs here. So we get a Great Orc. I'll show these the first time, then I'll just say, hey, I got a Great Orc token, which is huge. Put him in here. The other one we flip up is another warg. This is a tough army here. We'll flip up 1 in this region that is an orc. So we'll put an orc here. We'll flip up 1 up here, and it is 2 orcs with 1 token. 2 orcs. Pretty awesome. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I might as well flip 1 up here, and we get a warg on this one. Alright, so that is some good recruiting right off the bat for the Shadow Army. They get a lot of... They basically have 5 units in every army up here. No, 4 here, 5 here, 5 here, 5 here. Maybe you have a maximum of 5 in any area besides the recruitment area. So I could have flipped this one and have 6 here, but I only moved 5 out. But the rest of the card says we were able to move 1 in the Broken Lands. So we're going to move this warg army with the Great Orc here. And if an army has a leadership token, like this one does, it gets to go with the army. So it stays with the army. So this large host of 4 wargs and a Great Orc is heading straight in here for these poor men of Dale. Sitting lakemen here, I guess, over the ford. That's one reason we should actually bring that up here. The regions across the water are not adjacent, only in areas with the arrows. So we can cross here, we can cross here, we can cross here, here, over here. So there's a few spots, but you can't go from here to here. You have to go over those arrows. So you can defend. You could try to defend a certain area to stop people from coming in. But those lakemen are in trouble, and I don't think they're going to deal very well with that group of guys coming at them. Is the problem. Okay, so that was the Shadow's first turn. They recruited a whole bunch and they're moving in. The Free People, they might actually retreat back already, because that's a tough group right there to worry about. Next turn they could potentially move right up and attack them. There's no chance. They might be able to take 1 action over that fort and survive, but then they're going to be in trouble. So I think we're going to use a character die. So with a character die we can move, let's take a look at what we can do there. We could do a fast movement, move 1 of your armies with leadership up to 2 regions. Attack, move 1 of your armies with leadership to an adjacent region and attack. Character movement, move any or all of your characters on the game board. So that's like Gandalf, Thranduil. Play the card with the type character. Okay. So we're going to do a fast action, and we're going to try to keep these poor souls alive early. That's a lot of recruitment. The Shadow, that card really is going to get them moving quickly. So we're going to use this character die through the Free Peoples for fast movement. Now, for character dies, the army has to have leadership. So that could be any guy, like Gandalf could be in the army, or as long as they have this leadership token, which we placed here earlier in the game. So these guys are going to move back 2 regions, and they're going to basically retreat straight up to the ruins of Dale. They get to take their leadership token with them, So they have 2 leadership there. So leadership basically is used for certain dice like that to help, and it's also used for rerolls. So if they ever get a fight, they get to reroll 2 of their dice, up to whatever their leadership is. Okay, so that is what the free people are going to do with their action. I should have actually used one of my generals that turn. I forgot, but we still have enough turns to use them. You have to use them before you use the die. Okay, I think we're going to use a lidless eye to show that off for the shadow. Why not? Here's a lidless eye. I want to show off how the game works as well as just play it. So lidless eye is for the goblins. We can recruit 1 goblin in each goblin mustering point, which, if you remember, those are those areas on the edges of the board here. There and there. We can move 1 army containing goblins to an adjacent region, or from a mustering point to a mountain pass box and attack. And we can move 2 armies containing goblins, so even if there's 1 goblin in an army with orcs, we can use them. We have 2 armies containing goblins, each to an adjacent region. So basically move 2 armies to adjacent regions. Can't attack with that one though. Okay, so we're going to use the goblin mustering action. We're going to muster a couple goblins. I'm going to put 1 up here, because we put 1 in each region basically. So 1 goes up here in the north, and the other one over here in the western area of the map. So remember, once there's 5 goblins in the mustering point, then they break through the wall and they can come out and then come into this area here, and then they can flood into the land. Okay, so as the second die for the shadow, so the free people's going to go, and we're going to use one of their characters. I think we use Dane Ironfoot. Let's take a look at his card. I'm going to use him for the first time. So Dane, before choosing your action die, discard a token from this card to place 1 Dwarves and Men recruitment token in camp, or to place 1 leadership token on 1 army containing dwarves. Okay. That could be good in a way, because I want to kind of get that dwarf over. I think I might do that. Usually I want to get recruitment out. I think I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to use a leadership token in an army containing a dwarf. There's 1 lonely dwarf up here by the goblins. I'm going to place a token there, and I think I'm going to try to move him to help out Dane in the next turn. You see he's up here by himself. With a character die, we can do a fast action. We can move 2 regions. He can actually get over to Dane in 1 turn. We could also try to move him to camp as well. But I think we're going to try to help Dane out. Okay, so we used, not Dane, I'm sorry, Bard. We can move him over to Bard. We used him, so now we get to use a die. We might as well do that now. So we're going to use our character die to move any army with leadership up to 2 regions. So we're going to move this dwarf over, bring his leadership with him, and now we got 3 units in there. So remember I said there's a 5-unit limit in each region. That does not count your leaders. So even though Bard is there, we can have 5 units and Bard. So 6 with a leader. The leader doesn't actually count as an army. You have to think of the armies units as, say, I don't know, 100 troops or whatever, where Bard is a single person. So Bard being in the army doesn't give you any more dice to roll when you attack, but what he does give you is rerolls and leadership because he's leading the army. But he's only 1 person in an army of, say, 300 over there or whatever. However many you want to think each army guy is. So he doesn't count. So Gandalf, Thranduil, Dane, they don't count to the max of 5 when it comes to region limits for an army. Okay, so we kind of spruced up the Eastern Spur a bit. We could move. I think we're just going to push straight to the Ruins of Dale. I mean, I think that would be a good call here. So we're going to do a fast movement with the Shadow. They can move 2 regions, move 1 of the armies with leadership up to 2 regions. So we're going to use that large army here with the Great Orc and the 4 wargs. Since it has leadership, we're going to move them 2 regions right into the valley. That is a pretty big army. So now, because we have a group in the army, we have a chance to bring Bolg out already. But like I said, if he comes out now, he only gets one bodyguard with him. And if we wait until we get the Runes of Dale, then he'll have 3 bodyguards. So I think I'm going to try to wait for that to happen before we bring him out. Okay, so let's move on. We have Gandalf. Let's activate him. Gandalf has a couple options with his card, actually. Before choosing your die, discard the activation token to place the concentration token on it or to cast Blast of Magic. So, Blast of Magic. Target an enemy armor with a ruler, roll 3 dice, and get a hit for each result of 5. But if you wait until you have concentration, so in this turn we could put a concentration token on. Next turn we can use it if we put a activation token on here for him. You get, instead of rolling 3 dice with 5 or more hitting, you can roll 5 dice on 4 or more hits, so much more powerful. So we're going to do that. So we're going to spend his general, and here's his concentration thing. So we put this token on him, on his card, to show that he has concentration. And next turn we can attack with him. So the ruler it referred to is this guy here. It's 2-sided, one with Gandalf casting a spell, and the others with arrows going over. So the way this ruler works is you place it in one region, and if it can reach to another region or over it, it can attack that. You have to put it anywhere. It has to be within your region totally, so you can find the tip of a region you want to shoot from. And as long as any tip of it hits another region, even if it's just barely in it, you can attack that region. You cannot attack over mountains, though. So there's black borders around these mountain areas to the north up here. So we could attack like from here to here over the mountains. You can attack from other, as long as you don't cross mountains, and it can go across from your area to the other, you can attack with it. So when we use Gandalf's spell or Thranduil's ability, also it's like a shower of arrows, or archery it's called, we use that to judge distance on their attack. Okay, so Gandalf's ready to get his spell off next turn. But what is Gandalf going to do next turn? He's sitting here in Ravenhill. So is Thranduil. We might have to get Gandalf into the fight. We have a Will of the West die, which is actually a wild, which means we can use it for anything. And we have an event die, which means we can play a card. Or draw a new one. So either I might try to move Gandalf to help with the Runes of Dale, but I don't know if he's going to get there in time. But he may be able to soften up that army. Or I may try to move one more unit here into the Runes of Dale. Not sure what to do with this, because we could have 5 guys in there, which would be very useful. Having Gandalf close would be nice. God, that's a bad army coming to get them, though. That is tough. We might want it to be better to have 5 guys there. Because they're definitely attacking. They can't attack this turn, but they can attack next turn for sure. Let's see. We could also possibly bring them in next turn, since they're not going to get there this turn. Let's move Gandalf this turn. So you can use, I'm going to turn my Will of the West die. It's a wild. I'm going to turn it into a character die. And for the character, I can move anyone, or all of your characters, meaning the leaders. So Gandalf, each character has a level 2 and a leadership. So Gandalf has a level of 2 and a leadership of 1. That means he gives 1 reroll in any army he's in. 2 level means he can move 2 spaces each movement. So we're going to spend our action die to move Gandalf 2 spaces. He's going to try to get to the Ruins of Dale before it gets really nasty for them. So he's going to move 1, 2 to get to here. And next turn, he may be able to get into the Ruins of Dale. If not, he may be able to cast a spell. No, he can't. He has to get at least 1 closer in case they attack from there. Alright. Remember, the 3 people do get to go first next turn, so he could get in within range here. And attack. So the thing about characters are, if they're on the board, they can't be attacked by an army. So like no army can come over here and just kill Gandalf. But he can die if he's in an army that fights and that army dies, then he gets killed as well. But characters can move around the board at will without having to worry about getting armies or getting attacked by armies. Okay, so that is the die for them. We're trying to get Gandalf there to help out. I think we're going to play the second Lidless Eye. We're just going to recruit up here for the shadow. So we're going to place a goblin at each mustering point. So there's 4 up here now. And 3 here. So those goblins are going to come into play quick in that northern area. Free people have a event die, which means they can draw 1 card from the event deck and 1 card from the story deck. Oh, that's different. I was thinking of War of the Ranking, only draw 1 card from the 2 decks. Or they could play an event or story card of any type. I think we're going to draw cards. There's a maximum of hand limit of 6. So if you ever get more than 6, you have to discard down. We only have 2. So we're going to draw Muster In for Battle. That may be nice for us. We'll see. And then the story card on the march. Alright. So we're going to draw those cards. And that is the Free People's last turn. Remember, they have 1 less die than the Shadow. So until another army gets an extra die, the Free People are always going to have... The Shadows already have 1 more turn than they do. So they have a Muster In and an event die here. Let's see. They may use... Yeah, I think they're going to do it. So they're going to use their event die to play their event card, Marching Companies. Move up to 3 friendly armies. So it's not move and attack, but it's move up to 3. And since they had such a good start with recruiting because of the other card they played, so they're going to move this army here to get ready to attack the Ruins of Dale next turn. We have a couple armies with 5 here. So I guess we'll move this army from here. Make sure you can see. This has 5 units. We're going to move this one down into this mustering point because we can't. If we move them here and this army comes down, they'll be at the max limit. You can't have more than 5. So 5, and the mustering points you can have more than 5. And then they take their token with them, and then these guys are going to come down here with their token. So that's 3 armies we moved for that card. So they're on the move. Alright, and then we're going to use the last shadow die to a muster. So we can do 2 things with that. Normally, you can just, you can rally, you can recruit 2 different regions. We also have a bat here. Remember, the great bats have bat cloud. You can use a muster die to remove 1 from the territory and move another army up. So we may do that. Let's do that. So we're going to remove a bat in the Broken Lands, take him off the board, use the muster die, and choose a friendly army in the same territory to move it. So we're going to move this larger army with the Great Orc down to here, into this region here. So while these guys are going to be busy with Ruins of Dale, these guys, I think, are going to take a shot, most likely over here at the Eastern Spur, and see if they can do any damage there on their turn. Okay, so that is all of the actions for all of the for the Free Peoples and the Shadow. So we are done with the action round. Now we do end of turn. So we check victory conditions. Are there any victory? Did anybody win? Of course not. Then we remove leadership tokens, eagles, and great bats from the board. So the other great bat goes away. There's no eagles in play yet. The 2 leadership and Dale goes away because those, after every round, they lose their leadership, which is bad for them because it'd been nice to have 2 rerolls for those guys when this attack happens. And for the Shadow, they lose their leadership. I have 4 for them and 2 bats. I used one of the bats, and I already put the other one away. So the board is clean. And we move on to the next round, where we start by drawing cards, getting our dice back, and doing it all over again. So right now, the Shadow is moving pretty quick. They're coming down. The one card I used, the return into the assault, where we can fill out 5 tokens and then move 1 army. That really got them moving quick. Usually you want to wait till you maybe got 5 units to move them out at max strength, but we got 5 right away. So these guys are already here in 1 turn. These guys are on the move. So tough going early on. Shadow's really moving, and they need a move. You got to get going with the Shadow before this fate track starts getting some of these heroes out, making it tough. So they're moving pretty good, and I think it's going to be rough for the Free Peoples early here. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you guys in the next vid. Take care.